thing. Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to, I guess we're a little early, 2 minutes coming in. And I think this time we should go back and check the chat at the end
Yeah, yeah.
because last couple times we've been letting the chat just kind of run wild. And so if people are tuning in, as you're tuning in, we are definitely getting going a little bit early. But this is like the pregame because I actually accidentally hit go live. But
We got
I don't
two.
think I've said this to you, Woj. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Yeah, man. It's my pleasure. It's fun, and I was talking to my friend about it yesterday, and it's basically got down to it's just I needed something to do other than work, and this is just like a nice hour or two that we just chat at night, every other week.
Yeah, I feel like I would force you to have this conversation every couple weeks anyway, because I'd call you and just like want to.
Yeah.
There's so few people in my life that want to hear about this podcast or talk about these episodes. Certainly not my wife and kids. So I'm glad you can find the time in your schedule to make it happen for me. So you spare them. I think they should be thanking you, to be honest.
Well, I think that me and my local friends here that we used to go to shows together, and we don't really go to as many shows anymore, but we're like lore hungry. You know what I mean? Because back in like the 2000s and stuff in our day, there was a lot of lore. Every time we meet up, we're like, oh, did you hear this? Did you hear this guy did this? And this guy said this and blah, blah, blah. And now if we like feel like we're cut off from the core lore. So now all I have is just talking this, connecting these bullshit dots with you to try to fill that gap.
Now you have to put up with a 30-minute conversation where I'm telling you about all the skiing records artists that connect to different artists.
Yeah. Now I got to know about skiing.
Now you got to know way too much about skiing. I'm like working on the skiing video in earnest right now in the background and just doing all this research. And I'm now like, I think 10 pages into the research for skiing. And I
Mm.
guarantee that's more thought than any of the artists that have ever been on skiing have put into the label.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they probably half of them forget they even had a record on skiing, right?
Yeah, I think Fred Armisen remembers because they had quite a few, but I really do wonder sometimes if like the members of Phoenix TX remember
Mm.
that they were on skiing records.
Oh yeah, they were on.
They were on skiing. We'll get to that. That'll be for another day. But
Yeah.
welcome everyone to the third episode of I Heard They Stream Live. Today we are going to be talking about the Martin Wong episode and the Tim Singer episodes of Turn Out a Punk, and then whatever other stuff comes up in the process. Martin, but before we get into all this stuff, actually, though, I want to talk about a friend of the show and a East Coast hardcore and wrestling legend by the name of Jeff Cannonball. Jeff has been a friend of mine for, God, 10 years now. I guess I met him close to 10 years ago now. And one of the coolest, sweetest, most amazing people I've ever gotten to meet. He played in a bunch of bands over the years, from the Black Kites to the Altar Boys to various other kind of projects here and there. He did the music for the Gary the Squirrel 7-inch for the Best Show, and he's done a lot of stuff in music. But then I think most people that kind of know him outside of personally know him from pro wrestling, where he has made a huge impact in the world of deathmatch wrestling over the years. He was in the where I first met him was making the Bloodlust Tournament of Death documentary that I did with Vice years ago. And he's the guy who famously had the Kenzan, like hammered in Kenzan. I don't know if are you better with that pronouncing that Woj than I am?
I like pronouncing those things American way. Like I
Yeah,
like
okay.
I say gizm, I don't say geezem.
Okay, so a Kenzan, if that's anywhere near close to it, but it's a spiky frog and it's used for flower arrangements. And he had it hammered into his head in the documentary, and it was a scene that kind of lives on in people's hearts and minds forever, whether they like it or not. He was on the podcast a couple times actually, and anyway, recently he was diagnosed with ALS, and there have been a bunch of different events put forward to kind of help raise money for him and his family. A bunch of cool things that people are doing and reaching out to kind of help Jeff right now, and I think it speaks to how great of a person he is just by how many people have kind of come together to make things happen. So I want to kind of plug the GoFundMe page, which has been put up. It's support Jeff, Sam, and Milo against ALS. Fuck ALS. You can find it on the GoFundMe page, GoFundMe.com, or on Jeff Cannonball's Instagram page. I'll put links to it in the description for this episode when it goes up. And yeah, if you have any money and would like to contribute, this guy's an amazing human being, and it's really rough to see what he's going through right now, but he's taking it on with bravery and determination. And my thoughts go out to him and to his family. And once again, if you can support, support, because he is a amazing dude and someone that, as I say, a Bo Jackson had a massive impact in punk and in pro wrestling. So, yeah, I just kind of want to get that out of the way. You've watched that deathmatch documentary I did, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with him, otherwise, and yeah, but, I mean, really cool guy. Like, it's really cool when you see someone, especially someone local, semi-local to me, tying those worlds together and stuff. And I also just remember him from shows like Tear It Up shows and stuff like that, being around. I feel like I saw him at like home base in Wilkes-Barre a couple times, like in that era, probably.
Yeah, the first time I met him was when we were doing that TOD doc, and we went to shoot an H2O show, the first H2O wrestling show they did the night before, Matt Tremont's promotion. And there's a whole story leading up to this, but later on in the night, I'm looking at the merch table and I see like a Tear It Up kind of merch flip design that says Cannonball on it. I'm like, oh my God, who the hell's this guy? And then next thing I know, Plastic Bomb by Poison Idea starts playing over the PA, and out comes Jeff Cannonball. And I knew right there and then, and I don't want to talk shit on anyone in wrestling that's a punk fan, because there's like lots of people in wrestling that love all manners of punk rock, but
Hmm.
outside of maybe like Robbie Brookside, I can't think of many more people that kind of view punk rock in the way that I view it than Jeff Cannonball and the stuff that he's into. He's like a DIY hardcore kid, and it's not a gimmick with him. This is who he is. He's a pro wrestler and a huge punk rock hardcore fan. And yeah, like someone that's, it's so cool to kind of see where wrestling's gone in the last few years, where there's a lot more punk people in it. But 10 years ago, it was few and far between. There were punk people in it, but I mean like deep head type people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's I see guys working like the security on like AEW that are hardcore guys, singers in
Yeah,
hardcore bands and stuff. It's crazy.
yeah, the punk rock revolution really hit pro wrestling. And yeah, like you look at like everyone on top right now in the various companies, and there's, be it CM Punk, be it Darby Allin, even Phoenix. Like there's lots of people that have these sort of punk rock connections. Sami Zayn,
Hmm.
but yeah, Jeff. Few are as true to the core, I think, as Jeff Cannonball.
Yeah,
Not
for
casting
sure.
disparagements on any of those other
No, no.
people, but just talking about the realness of Jeff. So if you
Yeah,
have contributions, please give them. Also, acknowledgement about the passing of Colin from Conflict, one of the greatest hardcore bands or punk bands, anarcho bands, whatever you want to call it, of all time. Probably not hardcore. I guess that was probably the wrong term to use, but like an incredibly important band, like one of the greatest of all time.
yeah, man. I mean, yeah. What else can be said? I mean,
Yeah,
those records are so good, and I don't know too much about him as a fella, but you know, big
yeah. I never
conflict
met him.
fan.
He was like someone that I always kind of wanted to meet. They played Toronto one time, and I think I
Mm.
was away on tour when it happened, so I never got to see them live. And but a huge fan of their records. And speaking of someone that I'm a huge fan of their records, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but Brian Wilson from this band, the Beach Boys, passed away today too.
Mm.
Uh, Obviously, someone who had a massive impact on all music, but I think certainly punk rock would sound very different without the influence of the Beach Boys. Uh, I saw them live. Did you ever see the Beach Boys live?
No, I was always more of a Carney Wilson fan.
I saw the Beach Boys at Molson Amphitheater. It was on that when they were doing like Pet Sounds start to finish,
Yeah.
and he was definitely older by that point. But at one point, he brought out the Bare Naked Ladies, and they did "Lying in Bed" like Brian Wilson did, or Brian Wilson, and it was one of the most surreal things I've ever witnessed. Him singing that song with them, and yeah, rest in peace to Brian Wilson and Colin and anyone else who's lost anyone. Like my heart and thoughts go out to anyone who's dealing with loss right now.
Did you ever see Beach Boys with Stamos on drums?
Only on that Full House episode,
Oh, okay.
which I was a huge fan of Cocktail the movie.
Yeah.
So that Kokomo song, which I think they performed on that episode,
Yeah, yeah,
was like my jam.
yeah.
George Michael and the Cocktail soundtrack were like the tapes I got that year for Christmas, and I think I played
Yeah.
out Kokomo.
Everybody had when they were a kid, they had like, like 4 or 5 VHS tapes or whatever, and they're random and for some reason.
Well, I mean audio tapes. Like I had the audio
Oh,
tape of the soundtrack for Cocktail,
oh, right.
and then I had George Michael's Faith on
Oh,
tape.
Faith. Okay.
And
Okay.
I would, is that the one? I think that's the name of the record. I know that's the single, but
I think so, yeah.
I loved it. I thought George Michael, and now I like George Michael. I'm no diss on Wham or anything, but
Yeah.
back then he was like Stiv Bators to me. That video where he's got the leather
Yeah.
jacket and I like my dad was playing cooler stuff in the house, but that was my music. That was my punk rock, George Michael.
British people love George Michael. Like you'll hear like British people from like all different cultures, if they reference him, like it's with reverence. You know what I mean? Like you'll hear like a Skepta like say something about George Michael. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they all love him. It's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like England out of any sort of Western music country has like the most reverence for its past.
Yeah.
Like they canonize people and like great songwriters become considered poets and sort of legendary in that world. And like a lot of artists are given these sort of like second acts well into their twilight years where they can kind of be like sort of this older person, appear on talk shows. And I think you get a little bit of that in America. In Canada, we do not do that at all, unless it's
I
the Tragically Hip.
I don't know. I don't know if there's much of that in America. I mean, it's pretty.
Certain genres, I guess, maybe.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I just think of like do we have like a like even like a Robbie Williams or something like that? Like I don't think so, man.
Yeah, like you're right. Robbie Williams, like, is there a 90s American pop star that someone would give a movie to? Britney Spears. Britney Spears would be kind of like the equivalent of Robbie Williams, I guess.
Dude, Britney's not,
I don't know. I'm searching for an equivalency.
no, I mean, I don't know. I yeah, yeah.
Who was like the male pop star
But
of like
Robbie Williams, like for some reason, me and my wife went down a Robbie Williams rabbit hole like just a couple weeks ago because or maybe a month ago, like after that movie came out,
after the movie? Yeah.
and and I asked her, I was like, do you know who Robbie Williams is? Like, 'cause she saw it and she's like, what the hell is this? And for some reason, we like started watching Robbie Williams interviews on YouTube, and there's a specific, because they still have those like they're like England still is big on like talk shows with like
Huge panel
celebrities,
shows like those.
panel shows, yeah.
Yeah.
And that like when he's on them, it's a big deal, and he like holds court, and he was like, there's one I forget this one guy's panel show, that it kept repeating, and he's a repeated guest on there, and there'll be people on there that to us are way more famous than Robbie Williams, and Robbie Williams is like holding court, like I remember the one, it was like Robert De Niro was sitting next to him, and he's telling this story for so long, and Robert De Niro like doesn't get a word, and nobody cares about him.
Yeah.
And it's cool, man, and he's he has like a working class background and story and stuff, and I think right, you're right.
I don't like. I mainly know he had hits in Canada. Like he had like radio songs and much music would play his videos and things like that. But I mainly knew him because he beefed with Oasis. Like in terms of following that and his interviews about that. But outside of that, I don't know because there's even like a thing that's been circulating online of him wearing a jacket with all these various punk bands and hardcore bands on it.
Oh, really? I didn't see
And so
that.
there's been some speculation like, does he have any connection to this stuff whatsoever?
I don't think so. Maybe
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in England knows a little bit about punk. You know what I mean? Especially his age, but I doubt it. But he does know a lot about British rap and
Mm.
grime and stuff. And the newest thing is he like brought out like I want to say like Wiley Skepta and somebody else. I think like just this week, like he's you know what I mean. Or and there was something where he was like rapped something like word for word, like out of nowhere, like some UK rap song, and he knew all the lyrics. Like he's cool, man. You know, but he in the states, people straight up don't know who he is.
No.
Like
There's a
not
lot
at
of
all.
artists. I'd say he's the biggest one like that, but I like Jamiroquai too. Like in the UK, he's on all these panel shows.
Jamiroquai is way more known in the states
You
than
think?
Robbie. Yes, because Jamiroquai had hits,
And
dude.
he played Woodstock too, I think, right? Or one of the
He was
Woodstocks.
on MTV. Jamiroquai was on MTV a lot for like a handful of years, like 2 years. But Robbie Williams, they tried. He had that song Millennium, and they tried to make that a hit, and it was a dud. No one cared about it at all. The
That
only
like go
the
on,
only
sorry.
thing he's known for here is that the one Take That song, Want You Back for Good. People know that in the states. They don't know anything else.
He had the hit up here with that one where he rips off his skin in the video and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I don't wanna rock. And then he does that
Yeah.
weird rap part in it
Yeah,
too.
I didn't know about that song until we went into this deep dive a month ago. Like that didn't get played at all. Like no one knows that song.
I think we also have like a stronger connection to British music in Canada in general. Like
Yeah.
I always talk about this, but like Shed 7 had hits in Canada and like no one knows about Shed 7 in America at all, right? Like
I
so
just found out about them like last year.
yeah, like I feel like we because of like the colonial history
Mm-hmm.
kind of had more of that British stuff kind of coming in and there's like some sort of especially kind of going back to the punk era, there is like sort of a cultural exchange that kind of happened with people moving to England and British people moving over here and starting bands. So there was that sort of British music influence on us. But I know what I was actually thinking about this week, kind of on the same subject. Are there any like truly top tier classic rock bands that are American or are they all British?
I mean, it depends on your litmus or your barometer. I mean, like we have Journey, we have Kansas, Chicago, stuff like that, and like
CCR,
yeah, and like is Three Dog Night American?
I think they are. Paul Williams wrote a song for them, so that
Doobie
would make sense.
Brothers,
And like Leonard Skinner,
yeah, Skinner for sure.
but and maybe this is my Canadian bias showing through, and I don't get American culture enough. But like to me, we're talking like the biggest bands in classic rock. It's like Beatles, Rolling Stones, Who, Kinks, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd,
Well, we have Jimi Hendrix, we have the Doors.
Jimi Hendrix. But Jimi Hendrix had to go to England to break
Yeah,
out, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
like, even though yes, he is totally American, but I still
Mhm.
feel like most of that classic rock stuff. I guess that was the period.
I think the
Was
music scene in America was behind at the time. Like the States was I think like yeah, I don't know, like the hippie stuff. Yeah, I don't know because when you think about like the '60s and you think like oh hippie culture, everything was loose and stuff. But then if you look at the charts in the '60s and popular music, it was like uh still super
yeah,
corny and like super
yeah.
like straight, So
Tie a
um
yellow ribbon around the oak tree
yeah,
songs and like
it was still like Partridge Family sounding that stuff.
yeah. Even like when you think about the grunge era, like I remember the year Nirvana, Nevermind, I think was selling huge. Billy
Mhm.
Cyrus was still the number one selling record that year.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, but yeah, like I was thinking about the classic rock thing, and I guess like we're to me, and this is once again the punk bias showing through. Are the Ramones obviously not a classic rock band, but are they the first quintessentially like American band like that? Like, you have Southern rock stuff, you've got like Journey, but like in terms of like a tough,
Right.
straight up rock and roll band
I
in
know
their
what you mean because
presentation.
all those bands that we mentioned, I would say other than the Doors,
Yeah.
are like more pop rock than like straight up like rock and roll, you
A-
know.
And the Doors don't even have a guitar or bass. They got the
Nah, they
keyboard. I'm trying.
I
What's
feel like they
missing
have
there?
a guitar, right?
No, I think they've got like. No, my lack of Doors knowledge is showing through.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a
I
Doors
think I
head.
think they like don't have a guitar. It's like bass and the keyboard.
Hmm.
Ray Manzarek's
Yeah.
was like the doing the leads on stuff. I like one Doors song. Oh, Kiss. I forgot Kiss is another
Oh yeah,
classic rock
Kiss. Yeah.
American band too.
I mean, say what you want about Kiss, but they were a rock band. They were,
Yeah.
like those first couple records, fucking rock. You know.
And there's all that stuff about how they were super kind of influenced by New York Dolls or it was a same time period, right? Like
Yeah, I can see it a little, I guess.
I would love to see those like and I should probably have some of the stuff that exists on YouTube, but there's like that run of shows Kiss did just before they got signed. I think it's in New Jersey.
Mm.
And like the Dogs from Detroit opened one of those shows. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the Dictators opened up one of the shows
Hmm.
too. I would love to see Kiss in that era, like before the stage show and the stadium show developed around them. Like, what were they like as just sort of like straight up rock and roll band?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were just a New York rock music scene. They would, you would run into the Dictators and stuff like that, no matter what. But Kiss, though, make no mistake, were a money making plan from the start. You know what I mean? Like they weren't like music guys. They were like, they say it like, I couldn't get laid, so I was said, what am I gonna do I gotta make money. I gotta, so I thought, what can I do to do that? Oh, it's just like they say it, like it wasn't
Yeah,
like I love music. that doesn't get said once.
yeah. It's interesting when you look at that era of musicians, where there certainly were people that loved music, but it's a lot like pro wrestling, where it's not necessarily for the love of the game so much as for the love of the money. And I think
Yeah,
that kind of like idea of just doing it because you love it kind of comes later. Like
yeah, but
Kiss
I
would not have been content to be in a band in the van into their 40s.
yeah, but it's also like kind of like, now that I'm getting older, like I look at it and I'm like, it's kind of badass, man, because you're like, what am I like, like saying like, I don't know, a 9 to 5 or a career, like, of course you want to would rather be a rocker over that shit, and you have to like really commit to that and could blow up in your face, and that's cool.
Yeah, like I talked about with Martin about Green Day. Like imagine being in a position to give all your friends jobs for life, and
Yeah.
you have a job for life just making this sort of music. There's a lot of decisions that I made as a younger person that I think now I don't know if I would make the same sort of way because I just don't think you expect to live that long. So you're just like, I'm just gonna do,
Yeah.
what's right for this thing in the moment rather than thinking like 40 years down the line, 20 years down the line, even being like, damn, it'd be kind of cool to be Green Day and have all your friends on the road with you forever.
Kinda.
But then you see these people and they don't ever seem maybe Trey cool, but
Hmm.
they never seem as happy as you think they'd be. And there's always like drama behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
I guess it's like an all that glitters isn't gold situation. Like it's not quite the Partridge Family when you actually have to do this.
I know. I saw Metallica a couple weeks ago for the first time. I never saw them before, and it was definitely like religious experience type thing, like my age, like growing up, like straight up worshiping Metallica like my entire life. So like I'll go down like Metallica like rabbit holes and just like, because they're one of those bands that it's just fucking cool to look at pictures of them. You know what I mean? Like they're always wearing cool shirts, cool sneakers, fucking shopping in Japan. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're sick, man. And but then you just think of like, you know, all the stuff I heard about them, like stuff they had to deal with like in their personal lives and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a lot, but I would tell you what, I mean, I'd rather deal with that stuff in Metallica than deal with it being in Exodus.
Yeah, I haven't watched any recent interviews with Jason Newsted to find out like
Yeah,
how he
yeah.
feels walking away. Like he was bullied pretty mercilessly in that band,
Hmm.
so but like the fact that he walked away from Metallica to join Voivod is
I think,
a
yeah,
statement.
I watched an interview with him, and he basically, I think it was like during COVID, or when James went to rehab, or I don't know. There was some period where Metallica were kind of inactive, and he was doing his own band on the side, and they wouldn't let him, and
Yeah.
that's ultimately why he quit. And I don't know, I great people on both sides. I kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Metallica is such a look. Of course, they made records that we, could, you don't even have to say it, but it's still it's still like Metallica, and I don't know how to put it. Like doing stuff on the side can potentially just, I don't know, ruin the legacy and vision. And
They're all kind of like that too, those big bands.
yeah,
Like I'm really intrigued by what drives those types of bands. Like there seems like Chris Shiflett from Foo Fighters when he was on the show. Like I was like, oh yeah, do you think No Use for a Name could have done it? Because No Use for a Name had like video airplay around that point and all this kind
hmm,
of stuff. And he was like, no, there's no way we could have done it. Like it wouldn't have worked for us. And yeah, like I like he's like the Foo Fighters have a different gear, and like we're into
yeah,
like we kind of like approach it differently, and yeah, like that's what I found like real interesting that there is like sort of this. He's like the work that we have to do in the Foo Fighters is crazy. Like people just don't understand the level of sort of like dedication it takes to be in a band like this, and I guess that's true, right? Like they're you look at these bands and they do there's something that separates them from the
yes.
band beside them.
There's something about when you see Metallica, or you see like Guns N' Roses, and they're playing like their hit songs. I don't know, man. Like not anyone can write those songs. Those songs that connect with just like your everyday person. You know what I'm saying? Like it connect with a person who's deep into music. It could connect with a person who's driving to work at 7-Eleven. Like to connect with a mom, a kid, something about that, and a Foo Fighters, Metallica, Green Day, etc. They have that, and when you see those bands playing it, like I don't know, I had this feeling and this thought when I saw Guns N' Roses and they were playing those songs back to back. I'm like, they wrote that song. To me, like those songs, like November Rain it's not the same as a song that Cold World or Fucked Up are writing in our, together. Like, okay, what about this part going like that? Yeah, try it like this. Thinking of that, but then Sweet Child of Mine or whatever, or When I Come Around comes out, like something, I don't know. I
Yeah,
can't imagine it, man.
Guns N' Roses though is interesting. Like, did you hear that Frank Black episode that
Uh,
I did?
yeah, I might not have finished it though.
There's a part where he talks about becoming friends. We're talking about this Christian musician that he's a fan of and stuff,
Mm,
and he's Larry Norman. I'm like, how'd you meet Larry Norman? He's like, I met him because his brother, through his brother, who had been contracted by Guns N' Roses to just write riffs, and apparently they had like rehearsal rooms
mm.
with just people just writing riffs all day for Use Your Illusions, Volume One and Two.
Whoa.
Yeah, and you can go and there's like I was like, is this real? And there's like other accounts of it online about different people, and like you don't know what you wrote. You don't know if your shit's gonna. You don't get credit for it because it's like for the band. But they had like a bunch of different people apparently working on riffs. If Duff ever comes back on the show, I gotta ask him about that.
Nah, I don't know. That might be the last time he'll.
It might be
Yeah,
the last time, but I feel like anytime someone comes on Turn Out a Punk, there's like a 50% chance it's
might
gonna
be
be
the
the
last
last
time.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know if Ray Capo's gonna come back on anytime
Not a
soon.
chance. Not a fucking chance. And I don't think he had a bad time. I just think he's just the type where it's like this kind of shit, and unless it's like he needs to do it, or like it'll help him with something he's pushing. I don't think he. I don't think this is what he wants to talk about.
Yeah, like I think he enjoyed talking about it, but I think because I'm bringing up just any random thing I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah,
certainly topics that I'm sure he did not necessarily want to revisit or maybe get challenged on in some cases, or not that I'm challenging people in any
no,
sort of
no.
real way, but just like push back on. And
Hmm.
yeah, there's definitely a few people where I'm like, well, I'm glad we had that one. Even like Frank Black, who had an amazing time. I just don't think he's going to come back on here and talk for another 2.5 hours to me about randomness. So I'm like, you know what? If Duff comes back, I'm going to ask him about the writer's room.
Yeah, fuck it. I mean,
Fuck it.
yeah, I
Well,
think some people like talking like this, and some people don't. That's all it
yeah,
comes down to, right? Like,
definitely. Definitely. And like, and I never really know what the person's going to be like unless I've met them before. And even
mhm.
then, sometimes like there's people I know in real life that are super fun to talk to, and then as soon as they get them in this sort of situation, they're like, I don't want to be doing this, you know. And sometimes I keep forcing them to come back anyway, even though I know it makes them uncomfortable. But that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Two people that probably will be coming back though are Martin and Tim.
Mhm.
We talked about this off air, but you were a giant robot fan, right?
Yeah. I was a big magazine person when I was a kid. It was my entry into a lot of stuff. And I'm trying to remember if I knew about Giant Robot before this or not, but when I lived in New York for a year in 1999 or 2000, um I worked at Tower Records in the basement on Broadway downtown, and that was the magazine, CD single, and world music section, which
That's the best
sounds,
section.
yeah. Well, this was the era of Buena Vista Social Club. Remember that?
Yes, the highly, highly rented DVD at the video store I worked at too.
Yeah. So like people were coming down there for that world section.
Yeah.
But but yeah, man. So I would go crazy on magazines down there.
When also Tower had like the most progressive buying
Mhm.
policy for magazines, like they would carry zines. Like you could buy Max and Rock and Roll there, and
Yeah.
a lot of places wouldn't carry it because it was newsprint and didn't have some sort of proper quote unquote cover.
Yeah, we carried Maximum Rock and Roll. Trying to think of other zines. I mean, a lot of UK stuff, which was what I cared about for DJ stuff and stuff like that, but also like
Ben is Dead, probably. Punk Planet.
mhm.
Um, Flip Side, I guess you guys would have. I'm just thinking what the Toronto one had back then.
I don't remember Flipside in the New York one, but maybe. But yeah, I mean the buying for music in general was crazy. I mean, I remember what the what is the I was, a total dork. I was like 18 years old and like wore like 10-yard fight shirts and stuff at the time, which was sick. I would just
That's
still
still
wear
yeah,
that.
it's still
Yeah.
sick. It's not bad.
But in the eyes of this person, the one of the buyers was the guitar player for, I'm trying to think of their name. They're a New York grindcore band.
Like disassociate.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So I would like that dude would be his office was like downstairs in like the back room, and he'd be in there like in his little station with like stickers and stuff, and I could tell he was like a hardcore dude, but someone I think told me he played in Disassociate, and I don't know, I was such a like a little puppy dog dork, you know what I mean? And I wanted to like have a punk friend at work, but he like never he wanted nothing to do with me, man.
Yeah, it's funny how it feels like that wall's broken down a little bit, but like you'd meet that older punk and they would just be like such a fucking asshole. And I don't think
Yeah.
I was ever like that at any point to like an enthusiastic younger kid. I was probably more an asshole to people my own age.
Yeah, and I mean, look, like I said, I was a fucking dork. Like if I was, he probably just, who knows? He was probably oblivious to all of this. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And then I think the other two, there's another guy that worked there like really quick, and he was like a black dude who like knew about. I was super into drum and bass at the time, and he was just a guy who like knew about everything, and was like fashionable and stuff, and like just like the weird things I remember about this time, like when Nike Riffs first came out. Those are like the Nikes with like the tabby toe,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he like wore those, which I thought was so cool. And I remember like I got the new Ed Russian optical 12-inch with that came out at Breakbeat Science, and I had it with him. He's like, "Oh, Ed Russian optical put out it." I was like, "You know about Ed Russian optical?" And then like somehow hardcore came up. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm friends with Toby and H2O. I used to go to shows with those guys." I'm like, "This guy's the coolest fucking guy ever." And then I remember I saw like my first pair of like Ovisu jeans. I saw somebody wearing them, and I like explained them to him. I was like, "Yeah, it's like this. I have this like white like thing on the back pocket. It's like a little bug in here." And he's like, "Oh yeah, those are Avisus. They have them like down the block at Atrium." He knew he knew like so much cool shit. I was like, "Damn, this dude's like the Oracle. Like he's so cool." And I remember I think he like modeled too. And then there was another guy that when I was in New York, because I went to school at the and engineering, what the hell is it called? It's like a music like studio engineering school. You know what I mean? It's like a technical school or whatever. It's like Full Sail, but only st- audio engineering.
Mhm.
And the one dude in my class was in the uh they had a split with Slight Slappers
Oh, whoa. What
from Texas.
uh uh short hate temper.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. And this dude was like he was like a Spanish dude and looked like a model. Like he was like so fucking cool. And like he like put me on to Indian food because I'm from fucking the country in Wilkes-Barre. We don't have Indian food there. So he would
Yeah.
take me. We'd go get Indian food, and he'd like tell me about like sleeping with like models and stuff like that. I'm like, "Whoa, you're like the coolest guy ever," because I still am a straight edge virginal dork. And this guy is just like this like power violence dude who's also hot and like hanging out with models and telling me about doing blow and stuff. So those are like the three like cool guys in that year that
There was the guy that was I would apply every year for a job at HMV in Toronto, which was we had Tower Records, but like HMV was the cool store.
uh
And every year I would apply for a job there. And Chris Slorak from Mets worked there, and every year he'd be like, "This is the year we're going to get you a job here," and I never did. But Sandy worked there from
oh,
Fucked Up,
dope.
and yeah, there were a bunch of like punk rock people. The most interesting guy that worked there was the head buyer for maybe just the prog rock section, or maybe he was like a head buyer for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess like he quit one day and opened up a CD store near my mom's house, and I would go in there and they would have like the Captain Trip Mad CD, which was like $50. They'd have it for like 10.99 and like all
Mm.
this crazy shit. Well, it turns out for years he had been
Mm.
ordering shit in and then just like
Yeah.
taking out of the cases, putting it down his pants, and like because they would search your bag, I guess, at the end of your shift, and was still like stole thousands of CDs and opened a store with it, and then eventually, I think I remember hearing the HMV shut him down. The store was gone very quickly, but
Yeah.
for a while there were some good CDs to be had.
CDs were cool, man.
They're coming back. There people love them again.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, yeah, who knows what's going to happen to this cloud? I don't know.
Yeah, like I still want to get that Gizem CD,
Hmm.
that like really cool looking one. That's been on my want list for CDs. I got the Infest bootleg eventually. Yeah, I can't. I got to be honest. There's no way I'm getting excited about getting a rare CD.
I get I mean, I collect mixtapes. So like there's certain mixtapes that were, in the CD mixtape era, like I'll grab those. So I get excited on getting an original, from the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And then like also just like certain there's certain CDs I'll buy, you know.
There's definitely CDs that I've held on to, so,
Mhm.
and you're right, demos and like mixtapes. Like I think they were called like the Diaz Brothers. I had a
Yeah,
crazy
Tony
mixtape by
Touch
those.
and Doo-Wop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a crazy mixtape by them from like it must have been '99,
Mm.
but like 50 cents on it. Like it's got like a bunch of it was awesome that kind of era of CD
Yeah.
pre. I guess Dat Piff kind of killed that all off, but
Yeah. Yeah.
those would be kind of cool to collect. Yeah, you're right. There's who am I got tapes around me. I remember listening to these tapes. I got an eight
Yeah, man.
track. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
I definitely have magazines, and I
mhm.
do have some old issues of Giant Robot still. But then I also realized that I've got that David Cho first book that he ever put out, his sketchbook.
Oh,
That's got to be worth something, I
that's
bet.
gotta. Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I was looking up the other day just about Seattle records, and I pulled this out of my collection. Speaking of things that are worth money that you had no idea. Do you know this band? This is Chris Cornell's first band
Mm.
from '86. I don't even think he's on the whole thing. I think he plays on him a couple tracks, and it was like a record that you could buy pretty cheap. Anyway, it's now like a crazy money record, I guess, because of
I've
Chris
never seen
Cornell.
it before.
Yeah, it doesn't show up too often. I feel like it's a rarer one, but it was still one that you would show up in the wild and you could pick up pretty cheap, but
What kind of music is it?
kind of fake country.
Mm.
It's a lot of it's joke songs. It's been years since I've listened to it, but
Like Meat Puppets type stuff?
even more silly.
Okay.
Like I think it's more parody of country music if I remember correctly. I think this is their only 7-inch that they did. But as I say, I have not dug very deep into it. I just kind of pulled it out to trying to see which song he even plays on. I think he's got like a fake name on this too. Anyway, yeah. Who knew? Who
Yeah.
knew?
I
Collecting.
wish I still had some. So you still have some giant robot issues?
Yeah, because I worked at a store, a video store, and we would get it in, and at the end of the month, they'd tear off the cover,
Yeah.
send the cover back, and so I would just take home the old Giant Robot coverless issues and kind of read them. I think I've got a couple that still have the cover on too. I should have dug them out before this
I'm
because
looking
there were
at
like
like ones and I'm trying to remember which ones I had.
I more remember the various articles from them
Mm.
because it was around the time that Vice started getting super cokey, and that was not really my thing. It was also like the hipstery kind of stuff started really exploding, and obviously Giant Robot's kind of from the same era or like that era of Giant Robot was, but the way they covered things was a little more earnest. And well, now meeting Martin, it's 100% clear why, because he
Hmm.
actually is a very legit dude. But like Vice would talk about punk, but it would always be like super dismissive and like, oh, that was in the past, or
Yeah.
some weird reference to it. And Giant Robot would be making sort of similar references, but like in a very serious kind of way or a much more serious way, smarter way, maybe.
Yeah. I had this number 18, which I remember it had the Adrian Tomine optic nerve
Yeah.
interview. Because I was really into optic nerve at the time. And I had number 15, the Money Mark cover, because I remember I had DJ Crush and Beat Junkies. Those are the two that I really remember, and I might have had this number 16, which has like the yeah, I definitely had this one. It has like the remake of like the hookups, the chick like jump like kicking Jeremy Klein in the face,
Yeah.
and she's
Yeah.
she's kicking like a rollerblader.
I had this one that's like uh, I'm trying to see what numbers these are because I'm on the website. I had like issue, I guess it was 20 um, and 21. And then I must have been getting them kind of later than you were because I
Mm,
feel like me, it's mainly in the 20s and the 30s,
mm-hmm.
the issues that I had and have. Certainly like issue 37. And it's crazy when you look at these covers, like all the big name artists and people would go on to kind of become legendary artists that they had kind of
Yeah.
before they broke doing this stuff.
Yeah, it's funny at that time like I didn't I didn't really care about that. I mean, I still don't care about most of these artists. Like I don't care about like Murakami really and shit like that. Pretty like street art stuff, but even just like design, like graphic design on a whole, like I was unknowingly absorbing it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And this kind of stuff, like juxtapose and stuff like that. I was more into like music and like the what came with it, not just the design. You know, just design as the. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I totally. I feel like I could get into it if I knew what was behind it. Like
Yeah.
Juxtapose, I would always buy. I would get that every month, and there would be like only really one article or one profile that would really resonate with me. But once again, like I would love to grab an issue of Juxtapose, even if it was full of artists that I didn't care about now, and just read it because I feel like you're saying, we grew up in the golden age of magazines.
Yeah.
Like it was just before the bubble burst, so you had Grand Royal and Vice and all this kind of stuff, Giant Robot and Juxtapose and all those great music magazines. Mojo. Did you ever read Mojo Collections?
I've looked at it. I've never owned one, but I've flipped through them for sure.
That was, I remember getting an issue of Mojo Collections. They had an article about White House in it.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had like Thurston Moore. They would have make us a mixtape, and it would always be like Thurston Moore makes a tape or Marky Smith from the Fall makes a tape. And it was
Yeah.
always like learning about cool shit. Like I feel like all this information is still available to us on the internet, but without that graphic design, without the organization, and without the presentation like that,
Hmm.
it's really like you're saying, we're starved for lore now because you can't always get all that information out of this internet.
Yeah, and you just like, or you're just getting fed every constant little dumb tidbit that
Yeah.
it's just not even fun to kind of fetishize info.
Yeah. And it's also like a lot of it's the same shit
Hmm.
being told. Like, like how many times do you have to see a video about, I don't know, like any number of, like no one's making videos about White House.
Yeah.
Like there's not really coverage of that stuff. Maybe the world's better if people aren't making videos about White House though.
Yeah, right. But I think like maybe that's like that is kind of what opened the one of the many things that opened the lane for podcasts to get so big because just like bringing up David Cho, like when he was, I obviously know who David Cho is, and he was like a really good guest on Stern, but when he would go on Cartoonist Kayfabe, that was like that made me a fan of his because he would just nerd out about comics from like my era of comics, and he just knew everything and just like looked at stuff obsessively, like not the way I did because I wasn't, like I said, I was music first, but like I always loved comics and just all the little references and stuff that he remembers. I'm like, damn, I remember it that way too, and stuff like that. And he was just like super obsessive. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like podcasts are the way that you can kind of lore out now.
Yeah, definitely, especially that early wave of it, like Cole Cabana's podcast around there, where you kind of were getting insider peaks. Mark Maron even too, when he had like those
For
early run where he had
sure.
all those
Yeah.
comedians on, where you're getting like, yeah, that was like the another golden age of lore because
Yeah.
all this information that was just kept in inner circles was disseminated out to the world at large. Like that's where, like I really do look at that era of podcasts as being like my college for pro wrestling. Like listening to all
Mhm.
these pro wrestlers tell the stories and kind of break down all that stuff. Like that's what led to me making that wrestlers TV show, was hearing all these people on these podcasts being like, "Oh my God, why aren't people making documentaries about this shit?"
Yeah, like all those shoot interviews, and you're just like getting that peek behind the curtain and hearing guys like unload on one another or just, fuck it, I'm telling the story, you
Yeah,
know?
I guess that's what was the thing about magazines too, was it you'd see this stuff, and magazines was your opportunity to kind of get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, be it an
Mhm.
artist, be it like wrestling with those wrestling magazines and certainly the dirt sheets and the kind of like the peeling back the curtain a little bit. Even Mojo magazine, where you're like reading about the Kinks going on that disastrous first American tour and fighting with each other and getting booked by John Wayne Gacy and all this crazy shit. And you're like,
Yeah.
I love the songs, but this is so much more interesting now that I know all this shit.
All those like British like Q
Hmm.
and like Select and stuff, like those magazines went so deep,
Hmm.
and they would like they still do it. Like I see it at in Barnes and Noble when I go in there, and I'm just like, who the hell is even still reading these? But they would like every year it would be like the punk issue, or like the Smiths and Morrissey issue, the whatever, you grab those. They're sick.
I live for those punk issues. Like that once a
Yeah.
year they'd have that punk issue, and
Yeah.
even if I fucking hated it and disagreed with it, I just loved like, which I guess is why people like podcasts. Once again, it's because even if you love the thing they're talking about, or if you hate it, like it still makes it awesome because
Mhm.
you're just hearing people engage about something that in the normal world people don't want to engage with. So when I worked at the video store, we'd get all those magazines, and sometimes I wouldn't want to keep the whole magazine. So this is what a crazy person I am, Nick. I've got articles cut out of the various magazines. Like this is the replacements article from the 2002 September issue of Uncut. I've got a list of the Who singles from an Uncut issue. Here's a punk issue. This is insanity. But yeah, I've kept a bunch of these things over the years just because, like you said, you don't know what's going to happen to the cloud.
Yeah.
And even if it is on the cloud, how are you going to find,
Yeah.
this stuff laid out like this now? Especially because we're out of the golden age of websites. Now we're just in the bullshit social media posts about all this stuff. Like there's no deep dives like there used to be.
I know. Yeah. 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 Uncut. That was another really great one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I don't know. Like those magazines just put. Another thing is too though. Like especially like Like I would say like Giant Robot, Grand Royal, Vice, and then like in the skate world, like Big Brother,
Big Brother, yeah.
Slap, and there was one called shit. There was one not Warp, Switch. I don't know. There was one that was like skateboarding, snowboarding, and like a lot of hip hop and a little bit of punk. I forget
It
what it's called.
wasn't Dirt, right?
No, not Dirt. Uh,
Also Ego Trip too would be another one I'd throw in
yeah.
here.
Well, so,
A little
so
earlier.
these ones like they kind of like if you read Grand Royal, right? Like you kind of know what BC Boys are kind of about, like from their lyrics and just seeing pictures of them. But Grand Royal, like really puts it all together, right? Like, you read an issue, you're like, you find out about like, oh, like they only like this kind of Adidas and Puma from this era. The Gap is whack. Heck no to techno. Lee Scratch Perry. You know what I mean? Bruce
Yeah.
Lee. Like it gives you this kind of like identity and this like framework that goes along with it. Whereas like Giant Robot, you're like, okay, so this person who's clued into underground comics also is clued into, obviously there's like the Asian, uh influence that ropes it all together. But
Permeates everything. Yeah, all of
yeah,
it,
but
yeah.
putting that aside, like, like there's like, okay, you find out about DJ Crush and the Beat Junkies and, you know, uh Kung Fu Flicks and Hard Boiled and Chow Yun Fat and like all that stuff like that and like graphic design and street art. Like, okay, that's this kind of person. And that, like that was what was so sick about that. Even like in the skate magazines, like, okay, the person who's super just like about like technical skating and blah blah blah, they're like a trans world reader. A more Hessian skater is a thrasher reader. A more hip hop one is a slap reader, and then a goofy jokester one is a Big Brother reader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. Yeah, that's what was sick about magazines. They kind of like,
Yeah, for me, you're right. Grand Royal issue number 2 with Lee Scratch Perry on the cover was my personality. And I still
yeah,
am, that's still my personality. Like the way they deep dive, like they had Toby Vale writing about skateboarding in the
yeah,
issue. They've
yeah. That
got
was cool.
like, yeah, just like the vibe of it, like the way they connect the dots on different things, like the people they interview. Like I remember one of the sections they call Russell Simmons from Def Jam to ask if he's ever been confused for Russell Simmons from John Spencer Blues Explosion.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're doing this whole interview with him about it. Like that. You know, but they'd also tell you like, hey, if you buy like these Kmart bootleg Adidas, here's how you remove the
Remove
fourth
the
stripe.
stripe. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like how here's how to make a wallet out of duct tape. Like it wasn't like you got to buy the most expensive clothing that you can find to look cool.
They were saying the opposite of that.
Yeah.
That they're like that shit's whack. Like this, the coolest stuff is in the thrift store, and has like some funk to it.
Yeah, the Beastie Boys were my red pill.
Mm,
Now that I think about it, like that was like my way of getting, like not in the bad way, but I
yeah,
mean like that was my way of getting out of that social trap in school. And like I was already gravitating towards the music, and it was just like, oh yeah, I can decide what's cool.
yeah,
These fucking losers at school don't tell me what's cool and what's not cool. I tell me what's cool and what's not cool. And that was super empowering. And yeah, that magazine was like the still to this day it's like kind of like my Bible. I can still go back and flip through it and be like, oh shit, yeah, how did I not know about this thing before that, or that thing before this, or
You know what I love looking at those old magazines is seeing ads for weird buzzbin misses, like you know what I mean, like major
yeah,
label records. I'm like, what the hell was this weird band on Epic Records that has a half page ad in Grand Royal that I never fucking heard in my life? And looking
yeah,
them up, I love that shit.
because it's kind of like that post Nirvana signing boom where they're
Yeah,
like, all right, let's sign it all. Something's got to stick. And
yeah,
yeah, there's like so many incredible bands that were kind of misses in that era.
dude. Especially, I mean, especially now when like I don't. I guess it's just from being old. It happens to everybody. But I think all for some reason anything that's made now, I can tell it's made now, and I fucking hate it. And like, and anything from then that might have been whack then is now fucking great.
The
You
best
know,
ever. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like rap music, especially like stuff that like in that era where first of all you had to pick and choose what you bought because it was expensive, so you couldn't buy everything. But also, like if you were a backpack head, you weren't checking for no limit and cash money, or you might have liked the Locks, but you weren't checking for McGruff, or you weren't, like there's certain stuff that and you go back and you're like, damn, the Peter Lord Tariq and Peter Guns album, it's fucking great. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
you didn't get it then because you were banging fucking sound bombing or whatever the Cenobites.
Well, yeah, because it's also like you're saying, there's like only CDs were crazy fucking expensive, right?
Yeah,
Like $20, especially maybe it was slightly better in America because anything that came from America that didn't have proper Canadian distribution was a quote unquote import.
import. Yeah.
And so it was like $30 for like an SST
Mhm.
CD at HMV. Like crazy, crazy shit going on with that stuff. So yeah, you like the my window to everything was this CMJ CDs. Like when I was
Yes.
first getting into music.
Yes. Same.
Yeah,
I love CMJ CDs, man.
same. Like it was, and I like you're saying earlier, every band like seemed to have a song that was on there that was killer. You'd be
Yeah.
like, wow, this could be a hit. Like,
Yeah, man.
and
Like,
some were.
do you remember? Do you know the band Fret Blanket?
No. Oh, I gotta took a fret blanket now.
Fret Blanket were on a CMJ CD, and they're so fucking good, dude. They're like a British like post like post Nirvana, obviously, but maybe even post Nirvana because it was way after grunge. But they're out. They had this album Junk Fuel that, and then also, do you remember Compulsion?
I remember Compulsion.
Yeah,
But I don't remember what they sounded like. I think I just remember the half page ads in like those magazines
the
that you'd
record
get.
cover is it's like a weird like teddy bear with like a boy face like crying.
Oh my God, that sounds like an acid nightmare.
But I forgot about him. But what? Because I remember like I saw the CD in like cutout bins and stuff all the time, and I never heard it. And I remember the ad, but someone brought it up. Do you remember the bargain bin thread on Herps?
No.
Yeah, on Herps there was like an
The
alt rock
bargain bin
bargain bin thread. Where
was
people would just post that kind of stuff.
was it
And
dollar bin 7 inches?
no,
That
it
okay.
wasn't that. It was like about this kind of thing, like
Okay.
Buzzbin, like one hit wonders or never bends. And someone posted that, and like I run that Compulsion record, like once a year. Usually I'll go back to it. And then the band that had a song on the Crow soundtrack, for Love Not Lisa. Do you
Oh, I
forget
remember
them?
that song from that soundtrack. Yeah.
Dude, their record is really good. And like I remember that being like a cutout and like being like on sale and stuff. Like there's tons of them, man. Like
Yeah. My big ones that I got into from, I think it might have, this might all be on one CD. There was a Hagfish song.
Hagfish, yeah.
There was a President of the United States of America song. And there was Ben Lee was on it. And that
Yeah.
was like,
I had that one.
whew, that was like an incredible issue. And I
That
still like
had that had the Hagfish can I give you something to
to
hold
hold
on
on
to?
to.
Yeah, yeah.
Will you remove my pants and lift? It's like the dirtiest lyrics.
Yeah.
Eat my box while I
While I
work.
work. Eat it while I
As a kid, I was like, this is like green jelly. This is amazing.
Yeah. It was a banger. And I remember Bracket and Velocity Girl I found out from CMJCD too.
Bracken's a real interesting band. Like, I feel like they're, to me, one of the more sort of fascinating career wise fat
Hmm.
bands because they might be the only fat band that got a major
Yeah.
deal in that era.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, it was I don't know. I think it was a major, but no, they were on Caroline too. But yeah, I mean, they were the one that maybe I could see doing something like No Use for a Name are too snowboard videoed out, but I feel like a Bracket. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think any of those bands that could have made it. I think all that worked out how it was supposed to work out. I don't think any of those bands could have made it and didn't, personally.
Well, I guess the legend on No Use for a Name was that they were getting traction on that single,
Yeah.
and MTV was going to put it in the buzz bin,
Hmm.
but they wanted No Effects to give them a video, and No Effects was refusing to service them with videos at that time.
Oh, really?
And so it was like a real stalemate, and I guess that apparently undercut the push that No Use for a Name was going to get. But yeah, I think like I
Nothing
like
would have
for
happened. I mean,
yeah, for me it's always like you look at the band and you're like, could I see a teenager with this band as a poster on their wall? And let's face it, there's got to be a cute factor in
yeah.
the band. And I think No Use for a Name, I'm a huge fan, especially those early records, but
Mhm.
they're not, they don't have those like Turnstile good looks.
No. I mean, who does? But
Who does? Not me.
yeah. Oh, pff.
As you sit here across from me and stare in these eyes.
Those guys
Um,
are smoking hot.
they are definitely hot. It's funny because like you hear people talk about this with like Green Day, how it always felt like Green Day was going to make it. And
People
I don't
say
think,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think I felt that way with Turnstile getting to this level, but I always felt like they had that kind of like drive, gear, ambition that they were like at every stage, they just felt like they were like working to the next stage. Maybe not in the very, very beginning, but certainly from kind of that second LP on.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I the whole time I was like unsure if they were gonna do it. And I'm like have this dated mindset of kind of going back to what we were saying, like you have to write those songs that are gonna appeal to people and stick in their head. But I don't think you have to do that now.
No,
You know what I mean? And to
yeah,
me, that was the thing that I was like, I still don't hear the thing that's the song, the kind of stuff that's gonna make them what I think everyone thinks they're going to become. And that's just me being old. Like that's an old way of thinking. You know what I mean? And I think like I don't know. I think it's really. I think like the way what they're doing is cool. Like they're like. I think making it is cool. You know what I mean? Like I think it's sick and like not being and like being able to not shoot yourself in the foot or like do some dumb shit, and like just seeing them like on that like Zane Lowe interview, I thought that was really interesting because I'm like, first I was like skipping through them, like when are they gonna like talk about like coming up in the hardcore scene, hardcore punk, hardcore. I'm like, wow, they're not. I'm not hearing them do that. They're not doing that. And I was like, that's weird. Like, I'm like, are they gonna get blowback for not like trying to like big up the hardcore scene on Zane Lowe? And then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, Daniel has the Rites of Spring shirt on. The new member, I'm not sure what her
Meg.
name is. Meg has like a
X fucked up.
bastard.
X fucked up.
X fucked up.
Yeah, we did a
Oh,
tour with her,
sick. Oh, okay.
and she sang on some records too, actually.
Dope. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I never met her. I only know Franz. I don't know anybody else in
I would say
Turnstile.
Meg is the deepest hardcore head out of all of them.
Okay.
Like I've hung out with those guys very limitedly, but I have a limited kind of hangout time. But none of those guys ever struck me as a deep head about like the hardcore music. They've always been
Mm.
huge for hardcore, huge for their local
Yeah. Yeah.
scene, but like not, they wouldn't have been on Herps type
Right.
thing. But
Right.
Meg, someone I could see have been on Herps.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, she's wearing a bastard shirt, and I'm like, in a way, like this is doing it like this, like if you know, you know, and meanwhile we're not up here like trying to push hardcore and punk down people's throat and then possibly quote unquote scaring the hose, like alienating people who like, you know what I'm saying? Like this is their entry and they don't want to, if you're like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about, like I'm gonna go back to whatever dumb entry level shit they're into, or Sleep Token or whatever, you know what I mean? It's more like, hey, like you guys are all, everyone's invited, like we had fun making this record and this, we did this because of this, blah blah blah. It's not like, and I think that's really cool, and I think that kind of shows like a maturity and like an intelligence. And look, maybe they didn't do that on purpose or whatever, but I think it's just like part of their general kind of mo. And like I didn't really peep that until now, and like and I'm kind of like getting what they're doing, and I think it's pretty cool. Yeah.
There was like a moment a couple years ago where they, like, I'm sure that it's all been hashed out and stuff, but they kind of went to bat for a band that was getting dissed by another band for some bullshit. And I felt at that moment, I looked at them and I'm like, yeah, this band is the right band for this position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't know if we've, like, there's been a lot of bands that have been at that plate in hardcore, but I don't know if we've had ever that like right band. I say this like we're managing a team, but
Yeah.
like ever had that right band up at the plate where they've got like it all lined up, like they've got the aesthetic, they've got the vibe, they certainly have the bodies from working out. This is a very sexually charged episode you and me are having.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, and they are they're hitting home runs. Like
Yeah.
they're definitely like. Once Meg joined the band, like I always liked those dudes, but once Meg joined that band, I'm like, all right,
That's
whatever
cool.
happens to them, I'm going to cheer for this band.
Yeah. I would say if any of them are listening to this and they're looking to us for next step, uh, I would say get a problem.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm seeing these dudes and I'm like, these guys. What's the worst thing that happened to this fella? His shoe came untied this morning. Get a
So,
problem, and then you have something to write about.
yeah, but that's always like a real risk with a
Yeah, but they
band,
have
right?
the discipline. Look at how shredded and hot they are.
Yeah,
They have
but
discipline. So get your problem and don't resort to drugs or alcohol or negative stuff. Overcome the problem and write about it, and then you'll have your under the bridge or your sweet child of mine or whatever.
I think they replaced the problem with Meg.
Hmm.
Like
Okay.
that the other guy's gone, and
No, I don't mean that. I just mean like, now I just like what could be next for them, like,
yeah,
I don't know, like some real interesting content.
it's interesting. Like, yeah, what is next? And I guess like the next thing would be having that song that we
Yeah.
talked about, or yeah, it's interesting because like it can't be a radical shift because they've kind of already done that. It's also they're a developed band. Like this
Yeah.
isn't like, you know, I say this because of an upcoming episode, but this isn't like Candlebox getting signed after their demo.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a band that's had like an evolution to get where they are. So yeah, it is interesting to see what the next step will be. But I've kind of said that at every record. Like every record, I'm like, yeah, but what are they going to do next? And they've figured it out. So
Yeah,
maybe
that's the thing. Whatever I say, do the opposite.
do
Don't
the
listen to me because
opposite.
the
Yeah,
proof is in the fucking pudding. You
yeah. I'll
know.
tell you one thing you definitely should do, which is something they've had no problem doing. Ignore all the teachings of Ian MacKaye. Just
Yeah.
lean the fuck in.
The interesting thing about Ian MacKaye is though he'll tell you those rules are only for me. If you get the chance to do it and don't, you're fucking stupid. And I've heard this firsthand of him telling many people that.
I feel like I've had a different conversation with him about this sort of subject.
Okay, so maybe it
Um,
depends on who you are or how the conversation's going.
yeah, like I don't like he does quite and he says explicitly, listen, I'm not setting any rules how to live your life. I'm just laying down three simple things. But like but at this I've also found it interesting. I remember talking to I think Pat from Turnstile. I'm like, has Ian ever reached out to you guys? Because that would be I think earlier on it would have made a lot of sense. But like I've always felt like Discord never modernized as a label in the sense that they never signed like that new young DC band. And I know they wouldn't have signed Battery or Damnation AD, but I kind of felt like this era, like even a split 7 inch like they used to do back in the day, a split release would have been something to kind of
Ah,
bring it into that conversation.
I don't think he's interested in signing anything heavy.
Oh, he's not interested in signing anything. I don't think that's
Yeah,
outside of the
anything for
circle.
sure. But like, I don't know. I don't see Turnstile fitting a Discord thing.
I think now they wouldn't, but I think at some point, especially with the Lungfish connection early on, like I think it makes sense as like sort of like a not a passing of the torch, but I don't like I feel like that acknowledgement of the continuation of the thing they built
Hmm.
would have put the label like it's obvious the label's got no problems, but like at this point it's a lot of historical recreation and looking at the past, and I don't feel like there's that continuity which it is 100% entitled to kind of be a part of. Like maybe not a whole record, but like a split release, like just something.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I could see it. I guess I don't know.
They're the only label that has never from that era that has never tried to modernize. Like you look at Matador, you look at Sub Pop, you look at Alternative Tentacles even. They've all kind of kept going.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't have a finger on it and know exactly what you're signing and know the context of it, it could be risky because like look at Equal Vision and Victory, specifically Victory.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they modernized successfully, but look at how now people like us or hardcore punk people like look at Victory and talk about Victory.
Yeah, but it's not like I think they should have put out a good, clean, fun record or a stout record
Yeah, I
or,
know.
like this is, I feel like Turnstile, especially the era that they played Not Dead Yet, where they were still like a DIY band. I felt
Yeah.
like it made a lot of sense once again to me as like an outsider, but like
I just I,
Turnstile,
I
Ian
just
has
think
no
about how
reason.
Ian is so protective.
He is very
I
protective.
think
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah. Very protective. And also, um, yeah, he's never coming on the show. Like very conservative, not in a political sense, but like in like, this is the way. Like the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
This is the way.
I think
And
I think he's like that for him. He's like this is the way for Discord. For this
yeah,
thing, this is the way. And
but like,
that's just as cool to me, as being like fuck it, let's sign some screamo stuff, you
yeah,
know.
there was the one, like we were talking about Fugazi, and I'm like, yeah, there could never be another Fugazi. Like the conditions have changed, and he's like, yes, there could. There definitely could. And I feel like that to me is kind of where I'm referring to as these rules not just being just for him. Like
Mm-hmm.
not an acknowledgement like, yeah, Fugazi was like a lot of hard work, like unbelievable hard work, but also the conditions were perfect to make Fugazi happen.
Yeah, I agree, but I do also do understand why he has to say yes. There could be another
Yeah, of
Fugazi.
course, yeah. And I think like there's got to be that unobtainable perfect version of this thing that everyone's chasing
Mm-hmm.
and aspiring to and failing to be at different times because you need that, right? Like that Fugazi. Maybe musically, obviously I've got different opinions about it, but I think like just as an entity, like they are so unbelievably important to this thing.
Turnstile or my Fugazi.
I definitely feel the same way.
No, did you hear that the Paramore
Haley
chick said that?
Haley
Haley?
Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that makes complete sense like for someone who grew up in Christian punk, not that
Mm-hmm.
Turnstile's a Christian punk band, but like grew up in a major label band, like in that context Turnstile is the Fugazi.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
band that has ethics that is like we're doing this thing like I don't if you like Fugazi obviously has a different sort of set of politics than Turnstile has, but I feel like for this era where we're all on Spotify, we're all complicit in some sort of way. Like Turnstile maybe is the Fugazi.
I don't know. I'm too old to judge it. I think I don't know what turnstile means to a 17 or 18-year old.
Yeah.
And or whatever. I think now that our 17 or 18-year-old is a 23-year-old.
So
So
so in this equivalency, where Turnstile is Fugazi, is Paramore Bikini Kill?
no.
Is that
Paramore is no doubt.
no, no, no. I will definitely push back on that because my middle child loves Paramore these days, and so I've engaged with it a little bit more, and I feel like people look to Haley for politics in a way. Thank God people do not look to Gwen Stefani.
Yeah, but I think people used to.
Ever? You think people? I don't like
Not
Gwen Stefani's
not
always been weird politically.
not
Like
politics, like words, not politics, but bullshit,
aesthetics,
like
yeah.
girl power, like super surface level stuff.
But I feel like Haley's more politically engaged. Like the stuff she's talking about, like versus someone like an Avril Lavigne, or
Yeah, you're
versus
right, for
like
sure.
she is engaging with like
Hmm.
challenging subject matters on that sort of way. But yeah, I realize that's completely ridiculous saying that they are the bikini kill of this era. But I'll go for it. Maybe I'll try and get an article in Brooklyn Vegan where Paramore's my
Don't
bikini kill.
don't do that because you're
I
just gonna
would.
get roasted by people who do know who the bikini kill of this generation is, and it's gonna be some shit that's so cool that we have no idea
No
what the
idea about.
fuck it is.
I don't know though. Like I, that's the other thing is Turnstile was still able to develop, not with all this focus, because it feels like they were just prior to like the era we're in now, where well, maybe they were at a time when people were freaking out about demos and bands were getting on Pitchfork because of a demo tape, and it feels like things don't develop in the same way anymore. Like it develops in front of everybody.
I don't know. I'm so checked out of modern music. I just
Yes,
I just see what the band's names are and I hate it. I look at open Pitchfork or whatever. It's like Mommy Pants LP review. I'm like, what the hell? Soccer Dad triple LP. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm on TikTok though, so I feel like I'm really in the zeitgeist. Like I constantly go to the kids and I'm like, "This is called the Apple Dance, and it's going to be popular in like 3 months from now.
Hmm.
You wait." 'Cause but I'm not really learning about hardcore. I'm just learning about pop music
The
that
one
has
thing I am
dances.
learning about is Toronto slang. Crody.
Crody.
Hey, on
Yep.
two's my word, Crody. You're a
I,
Gerber. You know
I,
about that?
yo, definitely. Oh my God, yeah. I feel like a lot of that is that guy Top Five,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing that guy years ago downtown somewhere and hearing him talk and just being like, it stuck out to me so much.
It sounds like Fargo,
It's like weird because it's like
like that
obviously people talk about
Midwest.
yeah,
It sounds like they should be like, don't you know?
Well, that's the thing is like people always talk about like the Toronto man's accent, and there's the cultural appropriation that's going on there, and that certainly is in there. Like a lot of the patois that kind of is
Yeah.
used in it, but the accent itself to me sounds like Brampton. Like it sounds like the sticks of Canada,
Hmm.
and like that, like that's where that accent sounds like, hey guy, we're going to go check out the hip later on tonight, mixed with someone trying to like have like a New York thing kind of going on too, and then
I think
you know
it's like a lot of UK.
a lot is a UK slang, which is
Yeah.
the Drake thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like there's like this sort of like natural Canadian hoser ness to it. Like you're saying, that's that Midwest,
Yeah.
don't you know, kind of Canadian sound to it that
Yeah.
that also just keeps bringing through. As I yeah, like I had this friend down the street growing up that had moved to downtown from Brampton, and he kind of had that twang,
Mm.
the Ontario twang. There are subtle Canadian accents. Like if you listen to someone from Vancouver talk, get them to say any word with a n sound, like man,
Man.
North Van, man. Like they've got like a weird way of saying those two letters together. We got our own thing up here. No one thinks about Canada. Like we're just a monolith to you guys, but don't worry, there's some regionalism up here.
I mean, yeah, I would think so. It's so big. It's, there have to be regionalism.
Yeah, and musically too. Like there's stuff that hits in Vancouver that would never hit in the rest, especially now that much music's gone. Like that sort of like universality of Canada, I think, music wise, it's a lot more regional now.
Mm.
Again, well, we should talk about the Tim Singer episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, were you a Dead Guy fan?
I was not.
I was gonna say I don't think you would have been.
Yeah, I would check them out, like, and I didn't dislike them or anything, but I was never big into that kind of discordant metallic hardcore thing going on. Like Coalesce, Dead Guy. Even I like some of the first, not first, but like those Converge records from that time. Uh, I like those, but I don't even know if I own them. I might have owned one, but yeah, it wasn't really my thing. But Dead Guy was always a pretty big blind spot for me. Like I straight up like didn't even know they were from New Jersey until kind of recently. Uh, Weird blind spot for me, I gotta say. You know what I mean? But I never disliked them or anything. And then just like finding out, like, dude, I didn't know that he was Boiling Point and did all this ill graphic design, and you know what I mean. Like I found out, I knew about No Escape a little bit, obviously from the
The
Inside
split,
Out split,
Turning Point
Turning
split.
Point split, yeah, Turning Point split, yeah. But yeah, it's a blind spot for me. So like, you know, hearing his interview was pretty cool, man. I mean, it's crazy. He was like in the youth crew basically, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. He
and then
does
like
like
into the ABC No Rio era, and obviously like sick.
yeah. He's kind of like one of these guys that you can't really place in any scene or like doesn't really belong to one specific era because every time he did a band, even like No Escape didn't have that much recorded output, but they are kind of like a legendary band because the shows they played, because the vibe of the band, the aesthetic of the band
Mm-hmm.
too. And then Dead Guy is in the Decibel Hall of Fame, became this huge other thing. But then even Kiss It Goodbye, like Kiss
Yeah.
It Goodbye at that time was like, I love that fucking band, freaked out about that band. And yeah, it's fascinating talking to him, like a guy who took the photos for Blood, Sweat, No Tears and hung out with Born Against and was shit talked by Sam McPheeters too.
Yeah. I mean, he's turned out a punk podcast in a person,
In
right? Like
person, yeah.
that's a lot of dots. Just that's a menagerie of dots.
Yeah. Like I really sometimes when I sit down with some of these people it's almost overwhelming. I'm like, where do I fucking go? Like
Yeah.
I wanna dive in to like just Victory. Like just what was Victory in that era to me is
Dude,
kind of
Victory
more interesting.
is so interesting.
So interesting. Like that era too,
Yeah.
where
Because the
it's
one thing he said, I mean, you both said that they kind of didn't fit in on Victory, but I disagree. I think like there was that little pocket of Victory, like them, Bloodlit, even
integrity.
yeah, integrity, yeah, like I don't know, like Victory had a little more, was a little more broad than we give him credit for, but I don't know. And also the really interesting thing was like him talking about that weird point where metal wasn't, being into metal wasn't super accepted in hardcore yet. It wasn't like fully, you know what I mean? And they were like in that weird in between spot where like now, to me, like I've said this on here before, hardcore is metal to me now. Like I hear hardcore now, it's just metal. But then it was like, like I don't know if it was like this up there, but like when bands would like sound check before they played or whatever, like at the fire hall or whatever, they'd play like raining blood, and people
Yeah.
like, yeah, like metal was like, you'd like make fun of it or like jokey, people liked it, obviously, like everyone liked raining blood, but it was like Hessian, like, it was like, that's when like I hear about like people talk about like I hate metal made by like hardcore people. It's like not real metal and like stuff like that. I'm like, I feel like that's like a from then.
Hmm.
Then there was a major difference between people who went to hardcore shows and metal people. They're completely different fucking people.
There's
Now
beef.
it's not different.
Yeah.
Like now it's like pretty fucking similar.
Yeah, and I feel like also back then you needed like it's like what type of band are you?
Yeah.
Like and like you're saying there wasn't that metallic hardcore scene yet, so it's like, well, you're not a youth crew band, you're not a straight edge band, you're not a vegan band, you're not
Mm-hmm.
a spaz out on the floor emo band, you're not like there's like there were certain types of things that you could kind of slot into, and they're kind of on that island of misfits toys with integrity, post One Life Crew Ride, especially integrity
Yeah.
and like Bloodlet,
Yeah.
where it's like I guess they fit in somewhere.
Even in that kind of metallic hardcore thing at the time, they were different than Coalesce and Converge, to where they're, I mean, Tim's like graphic design was very like tongue in cheek and interesting, where it was like mixing like kind of like 50s and 60s like weird like iconography with, fucked up images or whatever they did, like cool like fonts and stuff, whereas everything else is like more like obscure and like weird, like, like Converge's stuff. And then the lyrics were different,
Hmm.
they, you know what I mean? I don't know, they were even different than that stuff in their pocket, and to me, right? Like,
Yeah, like they felt more mature, but not that
mhm,
like in a grown up kind of way, but just felt like a different vibe than Coalesce and Converge, which I
I
think
agree.
I feel like now knowing more of the Converge guys a little bit, like those bands I could not imagine being more disparate in terms of like what the people in the two groups of Coalesce and Converge are like.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't really know any Coalesce people, so I
We
don't know.
I interviewed Coalesce with Mike for Mike's like old fanzine the first time they played here, and I remember the guitar player was like, "I'm a Sunday school teacher." I was like, "Whoa, really?" Like, and then they were one of the craziest live bands I've ever seen. Like they were
Yeah.
playing on a Monday night to like 50, 60 people, and they smashed all their gear. And I had never seen someone truly smash a guitar. Like I've seen people like unplug it and then break it. I'd never seen someone smash it in the middle of a riff where like sparks are shooting out of it and all that kind of stuff. I'm like,
Yeah, they did
wow.
that shit in Wilkes-Barre at the Wilkes-Barre Fest. They like, the dude threw his bass drum and it hit a chick in the head. Like people like, people
We're
had
getting
their,
hurt. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It was
Even
crazy.
Converge back then, like Jacob would like fucking take people out sometimes, like running head walk across the crowd, and
Yeah. I mean
it
that
was
whole little, like I've been saying, pocket of hardcore at that time, it was cool. And it was like, what I like about kind of what Tim was saying, like that was like, there was a certain kind of guy who, like hardcore musician or hardcore kid, who are like, they're not interested in repeating the past. He's like, I already did that youth crew shit. I already was in that. He's like, I don't want to rehash that. You know what I mean? And I think like that, we always like come to like a, where I'm like, yeah, no, man, like that early 90s screamo stuff is sick. It's sick to me because that is kind of how I view that stuff. You know what I mean? Like those kids at that time, like trying to be sound like Straight Ahead or trying to sound like Outburst or something. Like these dudes were going to community college and shit. You know what I mean? Like that was a time when you had to kind of be yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
doing that would be, and that in that time frame would be faking the funk. You know what I mean? Like so that's why I think that stuff is cool. And like same thing with Dead Guy and Coalesce and stuff like that. Like they're kind of paving their own way, and I think they're like a precursor to like yeah this kind of like metal world that exists now that he was kind of because if you look at like what Relapse puts out now and stuff like that, it's kind of like what they gave birth to, right?
Yeah, I feel like it all changes when Satisfaction is the Death of Desire comes out.
Yeah, you think so?
I think that's like where metal acknowledged hardcore. Like, I saw Hatebreed play with like I think it was Voivod or someone crazy in Montreal, and the day before they had played in Toronto with all these hardcore bands. And
Mm,
this is still like Satisfaction is the Death of Desire era for the band too, where I think that record just was like a seismic shift. And certainly Victory, I think Victory changed completely after that record came out. Like that's their first real commercial success as a label.
for sure.
Like it wasn't Hi-Fi of the Road Burners.
No. Um. Yeah, I kind of look at Dead Guy and that stuff like maybe going more towards like the more heady side of metal, like the world of like Boris and like
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah, but that stuff was kind of going at the same time.
It was, but hardcore people weren't paying attention to it.
Bovine Records,
Yeah, right.
Bovine Records to me is all like that's another one of these labels that is it's way ahead of its time. Like they're
Yeah.
putting out a Boris record and a Turbo Negro record and a Spaz record, like all the same time. I Hate God too. All the early I Hate God records were on there. But like you're saying, that's they weren't a throwback label. Like they weren't putting out
Yeah.
Youth Crew stuff, and I guess there weren't too many bands doing the sort of Spirit of '82 style hardcore yet at that point.
Not that I know of, right?
But the,
Like
yeah, like I'm trying to think who that'd even be. Dynamo,
no.
maybe. Like they're kind of doing a throwback to New York thing of the late '90s.
You think they were I don't think Dynamo were early 80s sounding. No, were they?
I thought they were trying to sound like Antidote. They did Antidote cover. Like it was
Mm,
before.
yeah, I guess you're right.
I guess it was like super refined like that. I remember them just being like kind of like out of worldly when I finally heard that first 7 inch.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Gavel got the copy that I have at the final mosh. Like someone threw it off the stage or something. I remember that being the story where he acquired it. But yeah, you're right. Like there weren't too many bands doing that style of hardcore back then, or if they were more kind of crusty bands.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think they kind of yeah, this whole the way metal is now, I think they have something to do with it for sure. Yeah.
I just feel like that Hatebreed record was when all the metal magazines were covering that record, and I feel like that was just like the bridging of the two worlds. Like Hatebreed would play with, and there'd be a lot of fights at those shows, obviously.
Yeah.
But that was almost like the growing pains of the merging of the two scenes, like you're talking about. I think also as hardcore's move further from punk, it makes more sense that it kind of gets closer to metal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's also kind of where hardcore really kind of has another splinter, right? Like because there's obviously like the DIY and the Victory worlds were separate, but then just like you could say whatever you want about the Victory era, but it was only as procore as it could get
Yeah, yeah,
post Satisfaction that splintered. That's like the real procore, happened.
yeah. Like if you wanted to be pro core before that, you had to kind of go to a major label or even go, I guess, more pop punk and kind of saddle up to the pop punk bands that kind of had the like the
Yeah.
Epitaph pop punk stuff. I mean,
Yeah, it's funny listening to what people would complain about, like being sellout shit, like even going back to the sick of it all. Uh
Born Against Beef.
yeah, yeah, like it's or like Killing Time, how people were, making flyers about Killing Time selling out at
Yeah,
the time. It's like they made a record on In Effect, like what the hell? What the hell?
I remember when Kill Your Idols played Toronto and or they played London, Ontario, and the promoter got sent their rider, which was a very, very modest rider.
Yeah.
And it was like message board war, like cancel the show. These fucking rock stars, they want to show up and find water and some fruit. What the fuck is this?
Did you ever do any put anything goofy on a rider to see if they did it
Oh
for you?
yeah,
Yeah.
6 individually wrapped presents, which we have gotten a couple times.
Yo.
Um, we still have like selection. We got this from Waves, but it's local cheese. A local
Oh,
cheese.
that's cool.
Organic greens for relaxation.
For relaxation.
Yeah, you never know what's going to show up on that one. But
Yeah. I only
uh,
did a bowl of green M&Ms once. That's the only thing I ever did.
did you get it?
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome that you got it.
Yeah.
Like, because I guess you maybe can buy the individual colors, but I think they probably
No, this was in Germany.
uh, they must have been real. Like, I can't believe you asked for this. Like,
Yeah,
you
they knew it was a goof, I think, but
okay.
when we got there, they were right there on the table, man.
Damn, that's a good that is a good production team that can
Yeah.
get through that. When we played with the Stooges, and now you can see this rider online. It's on like somewhere out there, but they had the funniest fucking rider
Yeah.
ever. I remember like there was a bunch of great stuff in it, but like remember the one it's like broccoli. It's like broccoli must be cut into individual florets, arranged around a dip on a platter, and then promptly thrown in the garbage. We do not want any fucking broccoli.
Oh my god.
And there was like another thing. It's like water. No French water. That stuff's disgusting. Absolutely no French water. Parentheses. Unless we're in France, in which case your water is fantastic. It was, and then Shane McGowan's rider I saw one time, and in the end it just said, "No blow, no show."
Whoa.
Yeah, I wanted to put on the fucked up rider, "No dro, no show,"
Yeah.
but it was dismissed by the rest of the band.
Can you think of anything else from Tim Singer worth
I'm sure there's tons, but we talked enough tonight. I'm sure. Like you probably, you want to get in anything?
No, I don't think so. No.
All right. Well, we've got some interesting ones coming up next for everyone. Check out the Tim Singer episode. Check out the Martin Wong episode. Go back and listen to Martin's kid Eloise on the show on the Linda's episode if you're so inclined. And Woj, people should stay away from you online still.
Yes.
But Cold World have any gigs coming up? You guys got some shows coming up.
We're playing a fest called The Rumble in Chicago in I think 2 weeks.
So check Cold World's social media. Do you guys have social media?
Yeah, and I think we have something possibly in Toronto coming up.
I know about this one, but that will be
Yeah.
revealed soon. We'll reveal that enough for
There could
coming
be a
week.
podcast about that one.
There might be a couple podcasts about that one afterwards. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening and being. Oh, we didn't check the live chat, but I
Yeah,
also
yeah.
didn't promote this today, so I wonder.
We'll see. We'll see if there's anything that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, we'll check that out. But thank you everyone for being here, and we will see you on the next episode. If you're listening to the podcast form, you can find us Wednesday nights at 9:00 over here at this YouTube channel. But thanks for watching. I'm going to call you back, Woj, because when I hang up this thing, it's going to hang up on you.
All right, word. Bye for now.